Hello, welcome back to Blender Live Noding. In this episode, I'm going to explore animation nodes, and if you've been following my live noding videos, you might notice that at version 1.6, I kind of stopped using animation nodes. But while animation nodes is currently being developed like further by Jacques Lucke, and if you want to download animation nodes, you need to download the latest one from graphical.org. So this is where you can download the latest animation nodes. If you actually download from GitHub, if you search GitHub animation nodes, you will find actually version 1.6. If I'm not wrong, the latest in here is actually version 1.6. Yeah, but in order to do what I'm trying to show you here, you need to have the latest, which is Jacques actually call it Cyton branch. And in this branch, animation nodes can do a lot of cool things with array of objects. And you will be needing like less loop. But anyway, for this one, I try to cover the fall-off concepts, and I'm actually still learning what Jacques showing here with this video. So this is like a 3 minutes video that Jacques made, and this video doesn't have any sound, and it's like a 3 minutes length. And if you want, you go through this video, and if you maybe try to make notes, and if you have something that you don't understand, maybe I try to explain it the same. I try to explain the same thing using my own kind of way of thinking. But this video is gonna be my guide basically. Yeah, so let's just get started. The idea here is to get to understand this concept of fall off in animation nodes. That's basically if you have like a bunch of objects and you want to animate, transform those objects using all kind of fall off, you can do it now with ease. So if you have the latest animation nodes, and the one I have currently is I think version 1.75. So yeah, 1.75, 1.7.5, and this version should have a bunch of nodes that's dealing with fall off. And this fall off can actually have effects on offsetting animation. So it's not an easy concept to understand, but I will try to show it to you. And I'm actually still kind of learning. I only watched this video a couple of times, but I'll try to do the same thing. Okay, we'll start from nothing, and I'll have Susan head. I'm gonna save this real quick. Actually, this is animation nodes, fall off, basic 001. And by default, this animation node is set to always calculating. I turn it off and set it to 3 chains, frame chains, and property chains, so it's a little bit faster on my computer. Okay, let's now get started. I'll start with a Susan head, and let's see. Let's think of how we can animate this head. We know that we have 2 ways to animate this, whether using object transform output or we are using object matrix output. And with object transform output, it's pretty straightforward. You just select the objects, and since we have only like a single objects, everything is pretty much intuitive. You see what rotation does and what the scaling does. It's all pretty simple and easy. So that's if you are using object transform output. With object matrix output, it's not that much different actually. If you select the objects and then you provide this matrix data, it's basically the same thing. Translate, rotate, and scaling. Okay, so that's That's pretty easy to understand. But now if you want to animate this guy, what can you use? Instead of a single matrix data, you probably want to have like Animate Matrix. So with Animate Matrix, you have the start and end. So that's like two different data, like the beginning and the end. That's actually important for animations. And we can use a compose matrix, but we're gonna need two of them, because if we want to animate between the start and the end, we need to have different value. So let's say you start with a scale 0, 0, 0, and you end up with scale 1. You plug this into object matrix output, and you animate the time. You're gonna get the result. So that's not a big deal. That's actually pretty simple. You can add some kind of rotation and translations, whatever. This thing will actually update itself. So that's if I'm adding rotations. I think rotations should work. Well, anyway, we have that's how you animate a single objects. But what if you have multiple objects? Okay, let's say you have multiple Suzanne like this. How do you animate all this Suzanne head? Well, in animation nodes, normally the way you work is like you select all of this guy and then Control G. You group them together into a single group. And in here you are using objects from group and select the group. And then you animate it using a loop. In the past you have to use loop, but you will soon see that you don't need to use loop anymore. You can use like a multiple object. You can use like an array kind of nodes. For now, I will show you how, if you want to animate all these 5 objects at the same time using loop, you select the objects from group and then tap W and then loop through each object, and then now you can animate these objects together. But you will see that all these objects gonna jump into original position. You need to actually create some kind of initial position. If I just plug this in, and you see every object goes into 0, 0, 0, and that's not a good thing, right? We need to have some kind of initial position. So I'll cut that, I'll start again, place every object in the initial positions, and then select all of them, and then I'll go to this menu of animation nodes and create initial transform from current transform. So once I did that, now these objects have some kind of initial positions. I'll save this real quick. And now here we can use object initial transform, plug these objects in there, and this guy should understand the original positions. Okay, so we have the original position, and if you want to animate it, let's say we are using Animate Matrix, and let's plug this initial position at the end and plug in the result there. And if we animate it, okay, well, currently we are having nothing. But if I use like compose matrix here, this is gonna be like 0, 0, 0 position, and try to animate it. Oh, actually I need to plug the objects as well. Now I try to animate it. You will see that it starts at this position, initial default position, and then it travels all the way to the final position, which is the initial transform of these objects. You can actually do the opposite. So you start from the initial transform and then it ends up at the 0, 0, 0. So yeah, okay, that's kind of cool, right? But it's not totally interesting, because everything is kind of moving at the same time, and then we also need to kind of set all this position. It's not very fun to do. But if you are using the new methods to do this, you don't need to actually use looping. So I'll delete the loop. I'll keep the transform, the initial transform. And what I'm going to use is these matrices offset or something. Offset matrices. Okay, this is an example that's actually Jacques showing here. If you ever get lost, you can watch this 3 minutes video by Jacques. It's a lot more concise, and my one is a little bit longer. So I'll plug these objects there to get the initial transform. I'll plug this into there, and then the final result will be this guy. And we want to do some kind of offsetting of the matrices, and we're gonna use this falloff. So this falloff is the big thing in this video that I want to show you, even though this is still the basic. So let's see what the falloff actually does. If we are using directional, actually no, we're gonna use object controller. Okay, and then we're gonna have an empty here, and I will select the empty as the object controller, and I will select directional. We have all kind of these options. Probably we don't really understand what's going on. It's okay, just plug in the falloff into this guy, and now basically we are able to offset the matrix. We're gonna offset the transform matrix of each and every objects, but based on the position of the empty and the directional. Yeah, that's not very clear still, but it's okay. I'll try with the X, for example, and then I think in order for this to work, you either have always on, or you have the frame actually running. So I'll try to have the frame running, and I need to make some changes here. Actually, maybe I'll make the scale 0, 0, 0, and then I'll run this guy, and I need to make sure I also plug in the objects, so otherwise nothing is gonna work. So now if we test it out, so with a frame running, with a playback running, and if I'm moving this empty, you will see something start to happen. Our objects kind of scaling down based on the position of this empty and directional axis of X. We can actually change this to -X as well, and we're gonna have some kind of opposite effects. And you can also use invert, so that's a lot of option there. You can also use the Y directions. Okay, Y directions, and also the Z directions. So a lot of option there. The Z, I need to turn on playback and try playing with the Z. Oh, actually the Z is like ups and down, so the monkey is kind of scaling down based on the position of the empty. So hopefully that's pretty clear. I'll show it again with X axis, so I'll kind of moving the empty in the X axis. You will see the objects kind of disappearing based on that directional value. You also have, instead of using directional, you can use sphere, and sphere is actually, I think this thing have effects dependence on the falloff width as well, and then the offset. Let me try. I'll keep the playback running and then changing this falloff width. There you go, and then kind of moving the empty around. So basically, as it get further away, it's scaling down. We can have the opposite effects, invert. So as this empty is getting closer to the position of the objects, this guy is scaling down. That's because of this matrices offset. Okay, so that's a bit of mouthful actually, but that's actually the simplest example with a falloff. You have a lot of other nodes that you can use to control the falloff. Delay, wiggle, random, all these. there's one that's kind of interesting, that's Jacques Lucke actually showing here, and I believe that's actually, let me see, the delay. With delay, you're actually dealing with time. So let me try that. So instead of using object controller, which is this empty, we're gonna use the delay, and the delay should be based on time. So this time, as the time goes up, the object's gonna start to appear. So that can be very useful. All you need to provide is just a frame and plug this into the time, and our object's gonna appear based on the time, and it's gonna stop once it's reached this initial value. And you can control the delay and then the durations as well, all this. And even cooler is actually this linear and elastic and back and bounce. Actually, try using back, and then you're gonna have some kind of very subtle effects, you know, but it's kind of the animation is kind of offset, kind of overshoot, and then it settles. So that's really nice effects, especially if you have like a lot of objects. This thing delay is very, very handy. And with Jacques' example here, he also show one more thing where you can actually offset. You can use delay and kind of use kind of index of the objects to offset, to further control how the objects is being displayed. Currently, it's kind of seems like kind of random. It's kind of like automatic. It's just every object's just showing up. But imagine if you're kind of trying to control the order of these objects kind of appearing. You can apparently control that using the offset value here. So let's say you want these objects to kind of appearing, and it's kind of this one, and this one, this one. So how do you control that? You can apparently do that using the index. So this is also another concept, maybe not too easy to understand, but try to do it anyway. So I'll create a new ID thing, like kind of like an index, okay, like how we can sort this. Let's say we want to make this object appearing like counterclockwise or something. I'll select the objects first. I'll tap C and then select this guy and this guy, this guy, this guy, and the middle one is the last. So I want these objects to appear in that order. Once I have them selected like that, I go to new, and then I'll go to integer, and then here I'll select like my index order, and I'll click here from selection order. So now we have some kind of value that goes around, and in here I think we can have like a our value here, my index order, and then we have this object goes in there. If we check with the debug tool, actually we can see the value, the order of the objects that's gonna be displayed. See, 1, 2, 0, 3, 4. That's the index, the index order based on the selections. If we plug this into the offset, you will see that our object now appears in that order. You see, 1, so 1, index 0, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last one is the middle. You see, without this index order, they're kind of appearing a little bit random. If you don't believe me, I'll try again, and this time I'll select this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. So that's the order, so counterclockwise, and I'll create a new index order. Okay, so that's index order 2, and I'll change this into my index order 2 and plug this into the offset. Now you will see it's matching, the animation of each object is matching the way I select them. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much what Jacques actually showing here with this motorbike, and then well, he also show with the rotation, I think. So that kind of effect's very cool. It's something that you probably want to try yourself and then make notes yourself, but I'm just doing the same thing and I try to explain it slightly differently maybe. The only limitation currently is that every object is kind of animated the same, even though they have some kind of delay based on this fall off. Yeah, so that's okay for now. I think that's, I guess, cover the basics. Once again, so you have this delay fall off, and then you also have this object, what is this, controller object controller fall off. Again, you can use the empty. Where's the empty? So we have this empty. I'll select the empty. The fall off can be based on the directional, and then we simply plug this into that guy and set this to X. Try again, hopefully this works. Doesn't seem to work. Did I do it properly? Or maybe something has changed and so this fall off doesn't work. Maybe the z-axis. Try again. Invert it. Alt A. Huh, pretty interesting. So anyway, oh, actually this based on this empty. I have two empty apparently, so I'll try again. There you go. So it's up to you how you want to control this thing. Using object controller or using this delay fall off based on time. Okay, so that's I guess pretty much it for this live noding. Again, in order to do this, you need to download animation nodes add-on from Cython branch from graphical.org. This should give you version 1.7.5, and you will see that this version have this offset nodes, fall-off nodes, and these guys are not easy to understand, but once again, once you understand, it's very powerful. You can control a lot of objects very easily, like animate them in a cool way that normally it's gonna be hard to do without this kind of node setup. Whenever you got lost, I think Jacques' video here is very short, like 3 minutes. You can watch it a couple of times, make your own notes, and try it again yourself without looking at the video. I think that's probably the best. I will probably even gonna make my own notes in my blog for this setup, just in case I forgot about it. So yeah, anyway, if you have any questions, suggestion, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks again for tuning in, and